this lesson, we are going to transform a daytime photograph into a realistic night scene inside Photoshop. This isn't just about adding a blue tint, it's about truly changing the source of light in the image, so that it feels as though it was photographed at night. Before we start, let's understand why this process works. Why most day-to-night tutorials don't work. When you look at common day-to-night conversions online, they almost always rely on the same trick. Add a blue filter, drop the brightness, or apply a LUT that flattens the tones. The problem is simple. The sky is still there. And the sky, during the day, is the brightest possible source of global illumination. Even if you cover the photo in filters, the light doesn't change. The photo still feels like daytime, just tinted blue. That's why these edits look fake or amateur. The science of light. To fix this, we need to understand light. In daytime, the sun is far away. Light enters our atmosphere, scatters, and creates what's called global illumination. This means everything in the scene is evenly lit from above, thanks to the bright sky. At night, the situation is completely different. The sky is no longer a giant light source, and illumination comes from much smaller local sources, like the moon, street lamps, or even reflected light from buildings. This change from global illumination to local illumination is the core reason a photo feels like day or night. So if you want to produce a convincing night photo, the first step is to remove the sky that's causing daytime light, and replace it with a sky that matches the mood that you want. Here's what we'll do in this lesson. We will replace the sky with a realistic night sky. Then we will unify the tones across the image using a custom lookup table, so the sky and the foreground belong to each other. Next, we will re-illuminate the foreground by sampling colors from the sky and then paint them into the scene, so the image feels naturally lit. And finally, we will fine-tune the mood by controlling brightness, saturation, and color to push the scene towards a realistic night look. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand how light works and how to control it. Since we're turning this image into a night scene, it's best to follow along in a dark room. If you're designing in a bright space with light bouncing off your screen, it becomes really hard to judge whether the image is exposed correctly. Designing in a darker environment lets you see the tones more clearly, so each adjustment feels natural and matches the night look that we are creating. Day-to-night LUT installation. Before we open Photoshop and begin this lesson, we need to install our LUTs. And I will show you these steps on Mac, but the same principles apply on Windows, except you will need to go to this file path. So on Mac, open the Applications folder, and inside, find and open Adobe Photoshop. Go into Presets, then into 3D LUTs. In this folder, select all the files by pressing Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows. Right-click and select Copy. Now go to your desktop, create a new folder, and name it Original Photoshop LUTs. Open this folder and paste the copied files inside. Now go back to the 3D LUTs folder, select all the files by pressing Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows. Right-click and select Delete. On Mac or Windows, you may need to enter your password to confirm this change. When that's done, the folder should be empty. And next, we need to open the Downloaded Assets folder, which can be found in the video description. Go into the Day-to-Night LUTs folder, select all the files by pressing Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows. Right-click and select Copy. Now go back to the empty 3D LUTs folder and right-click to paste the new LUTs inside. Again, your system may ask for a password to confirm, and at this point you can close everything because the installation is complete. Now you can open Photoshop to get ready for the next part. Creating the night scene. Let's start by dropping in the image for this project, which is available for download in the video description. Before we begin this lesson, let's ensure that you're in the photography workspace. And you can double check this by going to Window, Workspace, Photography. The first step is to unlock the image layer by selecting the padlock icon beside it. Then rename this layer to Image and create a new folder by selecting this icon, also renaming it to Image. Now drag the image layer inside, and with it selected, go to Edit, Sky Replacement. A new window will open, and at the top, open this panel. Make sure that all the groups are minimized, and then create a new group, naming it Design Dummy. Now with this group selected, press this icon to import a new image. And in this window, select the sky image from the downloaded assets folder. Then select the sky image and click out of this window. To speed up this lesson, pause the video now and copy all of the values that are on display here, starting from Shift Edge all the way through to color adjustment. Now, assuming you copied all of these settings, select OK to finalize. We can see that a sky replacement group folder was added to the layers panel. And now we need to drag it above the image folder. Moving on, let's select the sky layer here and add a brightness contrast adjustment layer. When the properties window opens, start by clipping it using this icon. Then inside, set the brightness to 60 and rename this layer to Control Sky Brightness. And then right-click on it and change its color to red. Now minimize the sky replacement group folder, and with it selected, add a brightness contrast adjustment layer. Then inside, set the brightness to -50 and set the contrast to -50. And rename this layer to Control Overall Brightness. And also right-click on it and change its color to red. Next, hold Command on Mac or Control on Windows, and left-click once on the sky layer mask here. When the active selection is visible, press Command-Shift-I on Mac or Control-Shift-I on Windows. This action will invert the active selection from the background to the foreground. We can identify that we did this correctly when we see that the active selection edge line is visible on the foreground elements. Now select on the top layer and create a new layer by selecting this icon. Now find the Paint Bucket tool in the toolbar on the left, and before we fill this in, hold Option on Mac or hold Alt on Windows, so that you can temporarily see the color picker tool. And now pick the darkest color value that you can see in the sky by additionally holding the left button on your mouse and moving it around the sky area. And once you let go, the picked color will be saved as your foreground color in the toolbar on the left. Now left click once on the active selection to fill this in. And then go to Select, Deselect. Now switch back to your selection tool in the toolbar on the left, then rename this new layer to Control Foreground Light, and reduce its opacity to 90%. And also right-click on it and change its color to red. Next, with the top layer selected, add a color lookup adjustment layer. And inside of the properties window, select Day to Night number 4. Then rename this layer to Control LUT Color, and also right-click on it and change its color to red. Again, with the top layer selected, add a brightness contrast adjustment layer. Then inside, set the brightness to 150. Then rename this new layer to Control Overall Light. And also right-click on it and change its color to red. Once more, with the top layer selected, add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Then inside, set the saturation to -25. Rename this new layer to Control Saturation. And also right-click on it and change its color to red. Okay, let's just stop here for a second. Look at what we've created. We started with a bright daytime photo, and now it feels like we're standing here at night. That's a huge transformation. And if this is your first time doing this, it's an incredible achievement. But we're not done yet. Because if you look at this scene, something's missing. A real night photo wouldn't just have darkness, it would also have little pockets of light. And in this case, the street lamps are still off. So in the next step, we are going to bring those lamps to life. And this is the final detail that makes the whole scene believable. Street lamps, the final touch. Let's get things moving by adding a subtle street lamp effect. To begin, go to View, Rulers, and enable them. You will see that they appear on the top and left side of your workspace. With left click on your mouse, hold and drag from the left side and move the line towards the edge of this street lamp. And this line will act as our guide. Following this, we need to add a shape layer to cast the actual light. First, set the foreground color to this hex code. Go ahead and find the ellipse tool in the toolbar on the left. You can expand this icon towards the bottom edge by holding right-click on your mouse. With this tool selected, make sure that the top layer is selected. And use this guideline to create a circle, drawing it from the top left to the bottom right. To do this, you will need to hold Shift and hold left-click until you cover the entire area. Let go of the two buttons and you will see this properties window. Now select on the fill icon here and set the color to orange. In case the color is not visible in this section, you can add it manually by selecting this icon and entering this hex code. Then select on the stroke icon here and make sure that no color is displaying by selecting this icon. And after, close the properties window. Once that's done, reduce the opacity of this layer to 30%. And at this point, you will need to find the rectangular marquee tool in the toolbar on the left and draw with it along the top edge of the street lamp. Then press Command-Shift-I on Mac or Control-Shift-I on Windows. Only do this once. And at this stage, select the layer mask icon here. So with the light shape in place, go ahead and choose the selection tool from the toolbar on the left, since that's Photoshop's default tool and it keeps us from making mistakes. What we'll do next is rename this layer to Bulb and also increase the opacity of it to 60%. Additionally, setting the blending mode to Color and right-clicking on it to convert it to a smart object. And we can continue this process by duplicating this bulb layer. You can duplicate a layer once by pressing Command-J on Mac or Control-J on Windows. Once you have a duplicate, you will need to move it. To do this, make sure that only this layer is selected, and then press Command-T on Mac or Control-T on Windows to enter the free transform state. And we are entering free transform to have absolute certainty that we're moving exactly the layer that we intend to. So now we can move across the duplicate and position it on the street lamp to the left. And then once the bulb is in position, you can resize it by holding Shift on your keyboard and then dragging the bottom center point. Once you're happy, you can exit the free transform state by pressing Enter on your keyboard or by selecting the tick icon at the top. Repeat this process in the same way for the other street lamps, duplicating the bulb and positioning them using the free transformed state. With all of the steps out of the way, this final image looks awesome. And as part of building this lesson, I organized the layers with clear controls. So now you can step in and decide for yourself how far you want to push the edit. These controls are labeled and marked in red, so you can go in at any time and change them. For example, you might want to swap out the LUT for a completely different mood. But to keep your work safe, save this Photoshop file as the original, and then make a second version to explore these controls. This way, your tutorial result is always there to come back to, no matter how much you experiment. And that's it! We've taken a bright daytime image and turned it into a convincing night scene. A simple idea, but a huge transformation. Take a moment to enjoy what you've created, and I'll see you in the next lesson.